bright sunrise will contradict the heavy fall that weighs you down. In spite of all the funeral song, a bright sunrise will contradict the joyful song. The heavy fall, wonder why the earth still moves. Wonder how you carry on. The funeral song, a bright sunrise will contradict the joyful song. That heavy first day, wonder why the earth still moves. Wonder how you carry on. The funeral song, a bright sunrise will contradict the whippers. That heavy first day, wonder why
may be seated. Let me begin by expressing to Mr. and Mrs. Donais and Christina, Mark, Bob, Amy, Angela, Sophie, Emma, and Matthew my personal sympathy and my heartfelt love. As family and friends of Karen, we are gathered today in the presence of God, both to celebrate Karen and to find comfort. The scripture tells us in Psalm 116, "Precious in the sight of God is the death of his saints." Precious to God, yes, and to us as well. Nonetheless, we feel a loss of a loved one, especially one who's departed this life so early. I imagine if tears could build a stairway and memories a lane, you would probably march right up to heaven and bring Karen home. But there's a sacredness in tears, and they are not a mark of weakness, but a mark of strength and power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are messengers of grief, but they are messengers of unspeakable love, a love that cannot be quenched by many waters. And the waters of hardship that Karen endured in her last days, they cannot extinguish the love that she has for you and that you have for her. The word tells us that God is an eternal God, our refuge and our strength, and ever-present help in the time of trouble. He is the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort. Mr. and Mrs. Donais, Christina, Mark, and the family, I'm confident in my knowledge and experience with God that He'll be your refuge, your strength, your peace, and your comfort in this time. Karen loved and adored her nieces and nephew, Matthew, Angela, Emma, Sophie, and Rebecca. And so we're going to have you come forward and share a poem with us.
So if I can't finish it, Emma's going to do it, and if she can't, Sophie is, and so on. That's why we're all up here. Okay, so I know that no matter what, you will always be with me. When life separates us, I'll know it's only your soul saying goodbye to your body, but your spirit will always be with me. When I see a bird chirping on a nearby branch, I will know it is you singing to me. When a butterfly brushes gently by me so freely, I will know it is you assuring me that you are free from pain. When the gentle fragrance of a flower catches my attention, I will know it is you reminding me to appreciate all of the simple things in life. When the sun shining through my window awakens me, I will feel the warmth of your love. And when I hear the rain pitter-patter against my windowsill, I will hear your words of wisdom and will remember what you taught me so well. That without rain, trees cannot grow, and without rain, flowers cannot bloom, and without life's challenges, I cannot grow strong. When I look out to the sea, I will think of your endless love for your family. And when I think of mountains, their majesty and magnificence, I will think of your love for this world and all of its beings. No matter where I am, your spirit will be beside me, for I know that no matter what, you will always be with me. Aunt Karen, thank you so much for adoring us, always supporting us, and loving us as your own. All we can hope is that you knew how fiercely we loved you in return. All of the love from your weirdos, Ange, Matt and Vanessa, Beck, Emma, and Sophie.
Very good, Angela. You got all the way through that. So we're going to have Christina and Mark come up and share on behalf of the family. And I've had a great privilege of getting to know the family over the past few months and really enjoyed Christina's company. And she opened her home for Karen to be with family in her last days and probably had several guests in and out of her home during this time. But you were a great host. And I was I was in awe of her family around her at all times. And it would really bless my heart. But something really kind of silly. I was going over on Monday, and we were going to have a service together, and I was carrying in the Most Holy Communion with lid and tray. And Christina says to me, "Oh, have you brought a casserole?" Christina and Mark, come on up.
Thanks. I just want to say some kind words about my sister Karen before Christina gets up. I had a really good childhood with Karen and adolescent years. As you can tell by the outflowing of love and people and all the people that have been coming by the house and to the visitation last night and today, just how many people she really touched, including her brother Marky, as she called me. And a lot of you are probably wondering where the origination of KK came from. It was a name I gave her when I was about 6 years old, and Christina, Chris K. So if you hear that, you know where that came from, the little pesky little brother. We had lots of good times as a family growing up. One of the things that stuck out in my mind is a couple little stories here. We went to Bob Cajun, rented a cottage, and Karen was really good in sports. Any sport she took up, she was so good at, and she said, "Well, let's have a race." I said, "Okay." So off we go, and we run down past a tree and come back. Although she was a lot faster than I was. And so we go, and we're coming, and she's coming on her way back, and I'm still on my way there, and we hit head on. And stitches right up here. Karen got stitches. Mom and Dad were really happy. First day of the vacation, we're in the doctor's office, and on a weekend, getting stitched up. And she taught me to keep her head up, and I kept that in my memory as I play hockey, and try to keep my head up, make sure I don't take another accident. She's an excellent diver. I don't know if you knew that, but Karen was diving at Western, and Mom and Dad put a pool in, and it had one of those springboards with all these huge coil springs on it, and she used to do her big swan dives and pikes, and then her and Christina decided to teach me how to do an inward. So, she said, "Marky, get your heels over the edge of the board, put your arms out, and push up and out, and tuck in." Well, I did. I forgot to push out. And I whacked my chin off the board, and another set of stitches. I worked a lot with Karen. She took me under her wing. So we, after I was, various jobs growing up as a kid, I was still probably 16 years old, and Karen said she had a job at the Garden Inn Motel. And she took me under her wing there, and we ran that hotel. We did everything, and she showed me absolutely everything. And I thought, how am I going to keep up to her? She's so good. She was always so good at what she did. She did 150%, but she taught me a lot. She taught me great work ethic and how to be kind. And then we were living in TO after that, so we both happened to move down to Toronto at the same time, where we got together with lots of friends, played on a baseball team together, mostly made up of people from London. A lot of those people were here last night. And we go out to the Popper's Pub Bar in Toronto, and she convinced the two-man band to come back and play at a party at her house once. And we had a great little party back there. And it was about that time when we had our infamous trip to Europe. Amy, Karen, and I did the trip over to see the cousins over in England, and went to Amsterdam and went to Scotland. Had some great laughs. Remember, we got on the wrong train. Conductor came on and asked us where we were going. They come on 10 minutes later and punch your ticket. We said Edinburgh. He goes, "No, you're not." So we had to get back to London, England to get on the right train. And then she moved to Virginia, where she was very accomplished in her work as a lab technologist. And she had a beautiful place in the mountains. We used to go visit her there, and she was so happy to show us around. It was peaceful. She loved nature and animals so much. Karen was just a very generous, kind, loving sister. And I don't know, it's going to be tough not having her around, a big void to fill. She taught me a lot, and I'll be ever grateful for all the wonderful things that she taught me. Just so many long-term friends. I couldn't believe how many friends were here that, been friends for 30, 40 years. From the labs, from where she's worked, from growing up. Just you can just tell the effect that she had on everyone, and a very positive effect. She was loved to go to church. She was very faithful, and that helped her at the end. She was strong with her faith, and it really helped her pull through. So to that, I'm going to turn the podium over to my sister, where she's going to say a number of words. Thank you all for coming.
I think I should have gone first after that. Don't be afraid of the size of papers I have here. It's just really big font. My family and I would like to thank you all for coming here today to help us celebrate Karen's life and share our grief of her passing. The outpouring of love and support from extended family in the UK, I think that's you guys up there, hello, we love you, as well as the Tilbury gang, her friends, co-workers, and the professional medical staff has been so overwhelming and appreciated to us all during this very difficult time in our families' lives. Karen was born in Toronto to loving parents, Margaret and Alex Donais, and myself, the firstborn. Brother Mark came along shortly thereafter. After years later, we moved here to London into a wonderful neighborhood in Northridge, where we grew up and attended both secondary and high school. Karen and I shared a bedroom together for many years. We looked alike and were often mistaken for twins. Mom sewed most of our clothes then, so we often wore identical outfits. I have such wonderful memories of our childhood together. I remember how excited we were on the nights that Dad would tell us to get out of bed because Topo Gigio, the mouse, was on Ed Sullivan's show that night. A lot of you aren't going to be able to relate to that. Or there was the fear that we shared when we could hear Dad gasping in pain, but we were too frightened to get out of bed to check him. We found out the next morning that he had been practicing his new sport of karate while Mom had gone out to her bridge club. I remember the days of playing together and the excitement we shared when Mom would draw us new princess dresses on paper that we would cut out and fold onto our paper dolls. We would hang off the foot of our bed side by side, twin beds at night with our arms spread out kind of like that. And as we flew over top the busy city, I was Samantha from Bewitched and Karen was Sabrina because I was the oldest and very bossy. We loved our music. Many afternoons were spent in the living room playing Partridge Family. We would jam along to our record player set to repeat, playing our keyboards on the arms of the chairs, Karen being Shirley and me being Lori, because I was the oldest and bossy. We had wonderful neighborhood friends, so many of them are here today. The kids of the hood often played hide and seek in the evenings, with the window wells being the go-to hiding spots. There were backyard baseball games with the big plastic bat, and numerous hours of riding our bikes in the ravine behind the school. The families would get together for annual fireworks displays. Mrs. Payne would pop the corn and distribute it to us all in little brown paper bags. There were always 2 burning schoolhouses, one for the public school and one for the separate school. The night would finish with the annual argument of whose school had the most dramatic ending. The bedroom grew into the teeny bopper zone with pictures of a shirtless Peter Frampton on her side of the room and the teeth of Donnie Osmond on mine. The gals would gather at our place to practice a dance in the hopes that we would become Donnie Osmond's backup dancers. We even wrote and mailed him a letter of our great offer to him. The dream came to a rather abrupt end, tragic end, when our parents refused to buy us the white go-go boots from Kmart. Sorry, Donnie. I have great memories of our family vacations. There were the trips to visit my mom's family in England and Ireland, the rented cottage at Bob Cajun's fishing camp, where I might add was the only child allowed to swim 1 year because the other 2 had stitches. There were shorter trips to Boblo Island in Tilbury, where my dad grew up. Most of our holidays revolved around family. Later on, Mom and Dad put in the swimming pool for us, like Mark had mentioned. Neither of my parents even knew how to swim. Mark and I would spend hours trying to learn the dives that Karen had mastered. As the years moved on, those hours paled in comparison to the hours Karen and I spent suntanning on the cement beside the pool. We would even sneak the Crisco oil from the kitchen to help darken us up. Memories move on to late teens. I had purchased my first car, a '69 Mustang convertible. There was no stopping the Donais sisters then. Karen and I refer to that time as the Springsteen years. We made it our life mission to seek out any Springsteen knockoff band that we could find. Many a night was spent with the top down and the speakers blaring Thunder Road, driving through the city under the stars, feeling like we had it all. I guess we really did have it all. We had a road trip to Florida and joked about knowing every bartender at the Seeps. It was during this time that Karen introduced me to my husband, Bob. She was so certain that we would be right for each other. You did good, KK. We shared many secrets. Some I promised Karen that I will take to the grave. One little one I'll share with you now, Mom and Dad, were all the times we said that we were going to Sunday 4:30 Mass at St. Michael's Church, only to end up at the Chinese restaurant on the corner eating wontons and chicken balls. We always wondered why you didn't question us not being hungry for Sunday night dinners. Karen was such a loving and caring daughter, always concerned for Mom and Dad's health and well-being, but never questioning their wine consumption. One of their favorite memories is when we had been having an outdoor tea party. Karen and I had used some worms to simulate the food on our plates. She had grown so fond of the worms and tried to bring them into the house at night, wrapped around her fingers with her hands tucked behind her back. Karen was such an intelligent girl. She became a lab technologist and went on to work at Gamma Dynacare. From there, she went on to Robarts Research, where she was involved in many studies and had published papers. Karen was so modest that we only found out about those papers a few nights ago when Mark started Googling her name. It took the rest of us a while before we even realized that those papers had been written in English. Shortly thereafter, Karen was requested to come and share her knowledge and skills with the hospital in Richmond, Virginia. Our families were able to have such wonderful vacations with her living in Virginia and have some amazing memories of hiking the Shenandoah and Blue Ridge Mountains with her. This is where her passion for photography of nature began. Mom and Dad spent a lot of time in Virginia with Karen, hiking and sightseeing. Once she took them up a saddle path between two mountains. Karen's co-workers had warned her that this wasn't a hike that she'd be taking her parents on. After the 2-mile journey straight up to the summit, she realized that their lunchers was still below in the car. Then came her beautiful, beloved dog, Nahani. Karen rescued Nahani from a shelter, and the two were inseparable. One of Karen's final conversations she had with me was about her excitement to be with Nahani again. Life throws us so many curveballs, and Karen was of no exception. Her health took a turn, and it was then she had to leave her job and return home to Canada. What some of you may not realize is that cancer was not Karen's first struggle. She had several health challenges, one of them being her chronic migraines. They often knocked her down, but she repeatedly fought back to get back up, whether it meant changing where she would live or adjusting her career path. It was at this time that she welcomed Jesus into her life and immersed herself into his work. Having been ill for so long and frustrated with her medical experiences, Karen became passionate about nutritional healing. She believed that by strengthening the body through nutrition and spiritual guidance, that she would in turn allow the body to heal itself. She became a nutritional consultant and went on to practice under her own business called Into Your Hands. Being able to help people on such an intimate level was Karen's life's mission, and this became evident in all of her future endeavors. It didn't matter what type of work she went on to do, whether it was house cleaning, house and pet sitting, or her most recent work at Loblaws, Karen touched and impacted the lives of everyone around her. She was the most generous person. Karen always dug deep and supported the charities she was most passionate about. She forever sponsored children through World Vision and many other organizations through her churches, but one of the largest impacts she had in her time here was her role of Aunt KK. She loved and adored her nieces and nephew as they did her. She spent such quality time with them, helping to teach them such strong morals and values and the importance of family. One of the final things she said to them was, "I am a part of all of you." Mark, myself, Bob, Amy, can't thank Karen enough for the way in which she loved our children. Karen wanted me to pass on just how much her family and friends meant to her. She truly loved each and every one of you. You brought her so much peace and joy in her final months with your continued visits and text messages. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of you for the first time, and I can truly see why you would be friends of Karen's. We've shared a lot together in this short time, but they are bonds that will last a lifetime. She was such a beautiful soul who also saw the beauty in others. Her thoughts and opinions of others were nothing but positive. When she saw an undesirable weakness in another person, she would literally cry tears and pray for them rather than take offense. Karen, you have taught me so much about truly loving people and about forgiveness. You often had me in awe of your selflessness. I will continue to grow and better myself because of your inspiration. We are honored to be mom, dad, sister, brother, nieces, and nephew. Words cannot describe how much she will be missed. I feel we had so many more memories to create. I always had pictured us growing old together. They say that everything happens for a reason. I can't find the reason for this. It will never make sense to me as to why she had to suffer and leave her time on earth so young. Karen was never angry about her illness. She always looked on with such peace and trust that Jesus would take care of her. She put herself completely into his hands. We as a family drew from her strength. She comforted us in more ways than she could imagine. We are also grateful for the final days we had with Karen. We held her tight and cried tears of love for her. We prayed and comforted her in her final hour. Most of us don't get that opportunity when we lose a loved one. So please, my wish for you is that you tell people you love them more times than they need to hear it. Take the time to really be present in each other's lives. Put away the cell phones, turn off the TV, and enjoy and embrace your relationships with each other. When it's all said and done, that is all that really truly matters. When we miss her most, we can look at the moon at night, the waterfalls, the birds, and the flowers. We can look into the hearts of each other and find a little part of her. In that sense, she will live on forever. To end with an Irish blessing. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind always be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, sweet Karen, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand.
Cheryl.
Wow, that was really beautiful. I just wanted to share a little bit because Karen meant so much to me. I've known her about 12 years. And I would describe her as a passionate lover of God and a passionate lover of people. I remember when I first met her, she was a nutritionist, and she helped me get off my medication, which I'm still off today, and I'm forever grateful for that. And then our relationship kind of grew from there. We used to have a ministry. We traveled all over, and she came on staff with us for a couple of years, and she just did the best job keeping our office so organized. And if you know my husband, you know that's a big job. But she did such a good job, and she was just always so passionate about everything she did. Shortly after that, we planted a church, and she came alongside us and just threw herself into helping anything that needed to be done, even kids' church, which wasn't necessarily her calling or gifting, but she just threw herself into that and did such a great job and was so helpful to us in everything we did. She helped me start a cleaning business because now I had to come up with some income, and everyone knows that she was just so good at everything she did. And I'm so grateful that she was part of my life. And because just from hearing her family share, it sounds like she did that to everyone. She just gave herself to everyone and to the Lord. So I just want to sing a song now, It Is Well. by the sound of his voice. Seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken for my regard. Through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you. It is well with me. Far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. In this mountain that's in front of me, will be thrown into the midst of the sea. Through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you. It is well. It is well. So let go, my soul, and trust in him. The ways and when still know his name. Let go, my soul, and trust in him. The ways and when still know his name. And it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever though trials should come, and let this blessed assured control that Christ hath regarded my helpless estate and hath shed his own blood for my soul, and it is well with my soul, and it is well, it is well with my soul.
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Pastor Cheryl, and I was a friend of Karen's for over 13 years. And so we had the privilege, my husband and I, of pastoring Karen during this season. And we've already heard about the great things about Karen, but C.H. Spurgeon said this. He said, "A good character is the best tombstone. Those who love you and were helped by you will remember you. So carve your name on hearts and not on marble." And Karen has carved her name on our hearts. She was a person of incredible focus, and whenever she put her mind to something, she went hard after it. The laboratory technician that we heard about and the registered nutritionist. I remember I was one of her first kind of clients. I volunteered myself because Karen was always horrified with what I ate. And so my diet generally consisted of coffee, chocolate bars, and hickory sticks. And she couldn't believe that I could survive on that. And so she put me through this rigorous examination and survey. And then her program spit out all of this material. And so she came to me a couple weeks later with a book. I said, "Oh, Karen, could you give me the top 10? I think she knew that I wasn't very good at, changing my diet. She was an accomplished photographer, and this is where her love of nature and photography meshed together. I remember one day sitting at the church, and I'd asked her to bring in some of her pictures. I think I was at her home. I was at her home, and she was showing me some of her albums when she was trying to get me to eat some seaweed. Didn't go over well, but the pictures were impressive. So I said to Karen, "You really should start your own business, and you should, frame some of these." And I have 3 of them in my home right now. She was a lover of God's good creation and loved all animals, and I always admired that about Karen. And I love, the pictures of Nahani, and she'd be so happy to know that I became a real lover of nature and animals as well. Karen did operate her own cleaning business. She was extraordinary at cleaning. She was one of the only people I would let clean my house, and we would come home, and it smelled like orange, and everything was shiny. Every faucet in my home was without spots. And I would say to my family, "Please don't touch anything. Can we just enjoy this just for a moment?" But what Karen really would love to be remembered for is that she was a real lover of God. She gave herself fully to pursuing God. She participated in a mentoring group at our church. She finished the Bible school curriculum that we offered at our church. She was a faithful and reliant servant in ministry. She worked in our healing rooms, our prayer team, our church plant, and many outreach ministries. And whenever there was a work day and she arrived with her cleaning caddy, I knew all would be well, and that every faucet in the church would be sparkling clean. We often had events at the church, and because Karen was such a part of our team, at the end of an event, generally in the evening, we'd be sitting out in the cafe area and just chit-chatting and having a good old time about everything that happened over the weekend. And I think it was during one of these occasions, some of us girls started talking about eyebrows, because I was envious of Karen's beautiful, thick eyebrows. And so we're talking about tailoring them and all of those kind of things. She came back the next day, and I hardly recognized her because she'd done something with her eyebrows. It just didn't work. But lastly, Karen was a really, really good friend of mine. For the past few years, Karen's journey had taken her in a bit of a different direction, but this summer we met up at Joe's Cafe. And like good friends, we picked up exactly where we left off, sharing stories of where God had been leading us and the books that we were enjoying together. It was during this time at coffee that Karen shared her news with me that she had stage 4 cancer. I was literally shocked, but Karen remained calm, poised, hopeful, and confident. I left our meeting very saddened by her news, but I'd come to a realization in all my years of knowing Karen, I've never seen her in such a place of peace and rest with herself and with God. It was actually a very bittersweet moment. So I have to say, as a minister and someone who knows Karen, it's very difficult in these moments to know what to say or what the family wants to hear. Immediately, their hearts and their thoughts are on matters of great importance, like, where is Karen? What's going on? And what does God say in moments like these? And Jesus told us this. He said, "Let not your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me." And today, we can fully trust that Karen is fully alive in the presence of God. The Apostle Paul would tell us, Karen is clothed in immortality, and death has been swallowed up in victory. But I want the family and the friends to find an encouraging word in Psalm 23. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Moreover, when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And you prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life." The 23rd Psalm is written by the shepherd King David, and he was a shepherd. It is written from a perspective of someone who understood the goodness of God and had an experience and a recognition that God was his God. David experienced guidance, restoration, comfort, and provision at the hands of God. It was a relationship where David fully understood that God was for him and completely loved him. The basis of David's comfort is found in the recognition that the Lord is his shepherd. And a shepherd is a term that Jesus used to refer to himself. And we learn from the scripture that God is a God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our sufferings. The question I have, and that you must have as well, is how does God comfort us? Well, one of the ways that God comforts us is through the presence and care of his friends and family. And sometimes I used to wonder, oh my gosh, 3-hour visitation times, they could be grueling on a family. But those are really great times for the family to kind of have some gaps filled in about Karen's life and the people that she loved and that she touched and that she will be forever carved in their hearts. And so I think, that the comfort that you bring today by just being here and by visiting with the family last night is a way that God manifests his comfort to the family and to you as well. Nevertheless, when the business of a funeral is over, you are left with a hole, this weird space. But I can see from Psalm 23 that we can be comforted in times like this when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He can fill that space. While having Jesus as our shepherd and our comfort, he offers peace, he offers his presence, and he offers us a faithful promise. So verse 4 says, "Moreover, when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me, your rod and your staff comfort me." God is present even in these very, very difficult times. In life, Jesus will guide us and he'll provide comfort for us. I had the opportunity of being with Karen on her last day, and we were gathered around as a family and singing one of the songs that we sang today. And I could see Karen just laying back and enjoying the presence of God. We were able to, as a family and friends, just to do communion together and to share some scriptures. And when it was all finished, I said, I feel the presence of God here. And it was a really holy moment as a family to share together in Karen's last moments. Difficult times come to each of us, but what God does promise is that he will be present. He is an ever-present help in the time of trouble. Earlier in the song, David talked of God as a shepherd in third person. But when it came time to going through the valley of the shadow of death, David said, "You are my shepherd." There's a great reformer, Martin Luther. He said, "Faith is a matter of personal pronouns. In other words, it's one thing to say the Lord is my shepherd, but it's another thing to say the Lord is the shepherd, but it's a completely other thing to say the Lord is my shepherd." And Karen could say, "The Lord is my shepherd." And that was the faith that she had. I want to encourage Karen's family that the Lord walks with you through this valley, and I'm assured and I know that he'll comfort you in this time of need. The psalm also talks about God's peace. It says, "You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil." You know, sickness is an enemy. Cancer is an enemy. But in those moments, Karen was in complete and utter peace. I was amazed. She never said anything negative. She never complained, but she was at perfect peace in God. You know, the psalm talks about a place where Jesus leads us and guides us, and he's our great shepherd. But the psalm takes a transition where it says, "You prepare for me a table in the presence of my enemies," and Jesus becomes our great and gracious host. And so he invites us to come and have communion with him. How did Karen remain so settled and so at peace with herself and with God? Like Job, she could say, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and on that day he will stand upon the earth, and after my body has decayed, I will see him for myself. Yes, I will see him with my own eyes, and I'm overwhelmed with the thought." Jesus promised peace. He said, "Peace I leave you, not as the world gives peace, but as I give peace." And finally, the psalm speaks of promise. In one of his books, A.M. Hunter, a New Testament scholar, relates a story of trying to comfort a man when he was dying. And the man asked the theologian, "Well, tell me, what should I expect? What's going to happen?" And the theologian fumbled over some words, only to hear a scratching at the door. He said, "Do you hear that?" He asked his patient. "It's my dog. I left him downstairs, and he has grown impatient and has come up, and he hears my voice. He has no notion of what we're talking about behind this door, but he knows that I am here. It's the same with you. We don't know what really lies behind the door, but we know that Karen's master is there. And none of us really fully knows, but we know his voice, and we know that he is there, and he's present, and that we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." And that's a promise from God that we find in the psalm, that he invites us into communion, but not just for one time, but we get to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Karen is dwelling in eternity. She has settled down at home. And when we come to the end of our life, whether it's soon or later, there is a promise that we too can settle down and be at home with God forever. I believe that Karen would want you to know that she enjoyed a personal relationship with Jesus, where she could say, "The Lord is my shepherd." And every one of us present today can experience the same confidence that Karen had and enjoy knowing God, a simple turning to him and resolving to recognize that each of us needs his presence, his peace, and his promise. We're going to close with a hymn, "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus." And I'd invite you to stand with us. This was one of Karen's favorite hymns. We were looking for it on the iPad one of the days that we were visiting, and we were trying to find the right version that she would want to listen to, and we fumbled through the iPhone, and then all of a sudden we found it, and she, even in her weakened state with her sense of humor, goes, "That's the one."
Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and upon Jesus and look full in His wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Through death into life everlasting, He passed, and we follow Him there. Us, sin no more has dominion, for more than conquerors we are. Turn your eyes upon Jesus and look full in His wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace.
Again, we would like to invite you up to a reception following the service, but we're going to close with prayer. Father, we just thank you for Karen's life and how she inspired us, and we are so honored and grateful to have been a part of her life and to enjoy her. I just pray for Karen's family right now, and I just pray that you would be with them and just fill that gap for them right now. They're going to experience loss, and they're going to feel a weird space, and there's a hole. And I just pray that you would fill that for them right now. I just pray for everyone here who feels loss of a good friend, and just pray you bless them and comfort them. And we thank you, Jesus, for being present today. We give you all the honor and the glory.
Tell me, what does it look like in heaven? Is it peaceful? Is it free like they say? since you arrived. So tell me, what do you do up in heaven?